Alrighty, so before the festival sort of ramps up and everything, I want to go over the free banner because I'm sure that I'm going to have a little bit more interesting stuff to sort of dive into and make videos on whenever the festival drops. So I figured I'd go ahead and get it out of the way now, so that way if you need it in the future, you can always come back to it whenever you end up getting to sort of the step 10 mark or wherever. So I wanted to go over some of the picks that I would personally choose for my account, maybe something that I would choose for my free-to-play account, or just whatever the case may be, just giving some general thoughts. Obviously, this is all my personal opinion. If you have any, strong opinions for characters that you should choose or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments below, because I'm sure, some people are going to want some sort of guidance. But let's look at the banner itself. The banner actually has some really good units in it. Obviously, some of them are more useful than others, of course, but there are characters that I would completely avoid, whereas there are some, namely, Jelly King, who is one that a lot of people are talking about, and I kind of just wanted to talk about it because I don't necessarily think that he's the best pick for everyone. Like, obviously, if you're, if you have a lot of these other characters and you're newer to the game, I think a lot of people are sort of building up hype around King, and he's pretty niche. Like, you really can't use him in a whole lot of scenarios, so I don't want people to go for him just out of like getting swept away with the crowd kind of thing. So the banner itself, obviously, as you summon, you do get a couple of cool characters. You do get a copy of Red Magelda, which I think is fantastic. She works on all demonic beasts. She's not specific to one single beast. The only thing to note about her is that if you do end up getting her Holy Relic, or the Holy Relic actually doesn't even work in Bird because she doesn't have a way to actually activate it, whereas the blue Magelda does. So kind of a weird sort of hiccup there, I guess, with the way that her passive sort of, synergizes with the her Holy Relic. But either way, you do get a copy of Green Arthur, which is kind of nice. He is like the red Excalibur Arthur was like the go-to sort of like stance unit for just boosting damage and everything on the humans team. This Arthur seems to be just the new format, which is great because they share cosmetics and everything. If you have the old Arthur, all of his other stuff that you sort of invested into just pours right into the green one, which is nice. But yeah, he helps with like cleansing some debuffs off and stuff like that. He's a nice character to have. Red Matrona is actually a kind of a nice character to have as well, mainly for the bird. Whenever she originally came out, she was like groundbreaking for the bird because she has this stance that actually works for 3 turns, even at level 1, which is insane. And if you don't know, for the bird, you do have to have a taunt in phase 2 of floor 2, or else you'll get wiped, unless you have a way to beat through damage caps and stuff like that and kill the phase in 1 turn. So she's really nice for that. Just be aware that a lot of people end up running into the situation where they run red Tarmiel on her and it disables the bird's skill effects, and then he still one-shots you anyway. So if you're running into that issue, don't use red Tarmiel on her. Use blue Tarmiel. I know that it's going to be a little bit worse in the long run, but if you have to rely on a taunt and you can't one-turn that phase, you're going to end up getting yourself disabled, or him disabled, and then it's going to kill you. So red Gothar's in here. That's fine. He's free anyway. Green Hawk, pretty bad. Doesn't really matter all that much. But at step 10, you do get to pick one character off of the banner lineup, which is fantastic. The best characters that I would say on here are... Jelly King is an interesting one. I don't want to say he's the best. The reason why a lot of people are choosing this character is because he is a seasonal character. He is a Valentine's Day unit that is not in a whole lot of banners. Seasonal banners are the only times when they tend to put seasonal characters in the lineup, and so he's a unit that normally ends up getting swept away after the November festival that we're about to get and the December festival that comes after that November one. He typically comes out shortly after in February, and a lot of people are drained on gems. The Valentine's Day units are pretty niche in general, so a lot of the times they're not really worth summoning for, so a lot of people don't have this unit. I don't necessarily think that he's the greatest unit to pick, but I'm a firm believer, and I stand by the fact that if you don't have a unit, obviously you cannot use them. So if you have all of these other units, or you don't need dupes for any of the bigger ones that could be better for you, by all means, pick him up. That'll be a free 30 GP. You can use him for the niche uses that end up coming around from time to time. Namely, I think his biggest use is Chaos PvP whenever they do seasons of that. But for the most part, I don't really see people get good use out of him. You could maybe do like a farm team with him or something like that, because he does have an AoE weak point skill. But even then, that would be kind of a stretch. There's much better teams that you can use for farming. So, yeah, maybe not the greatest use. But he is definitely an interesting character. That's the biggest reason I think people are wanting him, is because he's just a character that people don't have. Tarmiel on here is crazy. Red Tarmiel is insane. He's so useful. If you are a newer player and you do not have Red Tarmiel, if you don't know, his Grace actually makes it to where you regain HP after each attack that the enemy does on you. So that is going to be a really nice way to make sure your characters don't just instantly die. Like if you're fighting somebody who does a lot of damage, if they can do multiple hits in a row on you, obviously you're probably going to die. So this is a nice way to gain about half of the HP back. Well, it's not half. It's instantly recovers 30% of damage taken. So I mean, it's just really helpful. You don't even have to have him super high dupes or anything. It's helpful to have him high dupes so that way you get more stats from using him as an associated unit. But for the most part, you just want to make sure that you have the Grace, which is very nice. If they attack you twice, they block themselves, so their skill effects don't work. It's just insanely useful. He's a character that has sort of like, as soon as he came out, he changed the way that you had to kind of look at PvP and the way you had to attack the enemies and stuff. He really is a groundbreaking unit. Obviously, I think a lot of people have him nowadays, so people don't really think about him that much. It's just kind of a standard thing in the game at this point, but if you're new, just know that he really is fantastic. The other character that I would say maybe is like one of the best ones to get is Freyr. Freyr is super helpful for a lot of the demonic beasts. He's really nice for some PvE content. He's not necessarily as good in PvP. There are some better options that people use. At the moment, I do actually run into some Freyrs from time to time, which is cool. If you can get his Holy Relic, which I'll be honest, if you're newer, you're probably not going to be able to get it for a while, because I'm pretty sure it's locked behind Nidhogg, which is the hardest of the 4 demonic beasts. So probably not going to be able to worry about that for now, but if you do end up getting it, it does make him quite a bit better. You get some extra basic stats and stuff like that. But the biggest thing is that his ultimate has death damage on it. And even at 1/6, it's kind of nice, because it'll just do a little bit of extra damage after the initial hit. But if you can get extra dupes of this character at 6/6, if you max him completely out, which he tends to be on a decent amount of banners, you can actually do 100% extra damage. So it literally hits for a big amount of damage because it's a single target, ultimate, and then it hits again for the exact same amount of damage. So it's really nice in that regard. A lot of the demonic beasts or some of the newer event bosses or final bosses or whatever the case may be have damage caps built into them where you can't do more than a certain amount of their HP in one move, and this will help bypass some of that. You can hit 2 damage caps with one card instead of 1, which is honestly really helpful. So I think that he's a fantastic unit. There are a couple of like honorable mentions. I like Skadi. I barely ever get to pull Skadi for some reason. She's not on a whole lot of banners, and when she does end up getting on there, I never get lucky enough to pull her. Do I think you should go out of your way to get her? Probably not. She's a little bit of a niche use case, but if there's a lot of debuffs and stuff in the meta, she can be kind of nice. Brawler Bon is a fantastic backline unit for just like a well-rounded team. You can just basically throw him in the back for anyone. Any team can kind of use him. If you don't know, he just increases your attack-related stats and then lowers the enemy's pierce rate, crit chance, and crit damage by 15%, which is, it doesn't sound that crazy, but, every little bit helps, and he's just a solid backliner. He was a character that whenever he came out, a lot of people were like, he's not that great, I'm skipping him, and then he was just like the best just sort of like backliner to throw on any team in the game. So I really regretted not pulling for him originally, and it took me over a year to be able to finally get him. So he is kind of nice. He's not obviously the best choice for every single situation, but can be kind of helpful. Thonar, for example, is one of the characters that you definitely don't want to pick. I would not pick her because you get her for free from the Hero's Way, which is just like if you're a newer account or whatever and you haven't done that, just go through the little challenges and you'll be able to grab a couple of free characters. I would not recommend really grabbing any of these bottom characters. All of these old Catastrophe characters are really not super useful anymore. The only one that I would say is maybe okay is maybe Green Shin, and it's because he has 2 AoE cards. People use him for farming teams, but like I said, if you have more modern units, more than likely you can come up with a better farming team that doesn't require him anyway. So, Brunhild is a pretty interesting one. She actually does a pretty good job at just being a DPS for PvE stuff. She's actually kind of nice. A lot of people were using her for a good long while in Bird and Deer and stuff like that. She was a great just DPS unit to throw in Demonic Beast teams. Sigurd, honestly, has kind of sailed at this point. Like, it's not really worth investing into Sigurd anymore unless there's just like a weird resurgence in use for him, because he's already got his Holy Relic at this point. I don't really see you needing this character. From time to time, it is kind of cool that you can get 3 attack buff stats on your whole team with him. It can help, you know, make amplifying characters hit a little bit harder, but even then, I feel like it's still pretty niche. It doesn't actually feel like it helps as much as you would want it to. Another honorable mention is Sariel. Sariel is a really nice character. He is one of the newer Graces. He came out pretty much alongside Red Tarmiel. He's not as good as Red Tarmiel by far, but it actually does kind of help a little bit. You can use this character to throw on just a lot of debuffs by every time you use a character skill. When you're using him as an association, it'll basically throw a crit chance lower onto the enemy, which is really, really nice. There's crit chance and crit damage, so just kind of helps overall. You just throw a whole bunch of those on. If there's like a backliner like Green Zeldris or something that gives you stats based on the amount of debuffs the enemy has, it can be really, really helpful. So I would say personally, if you do not have a 6/6 Freyr or you don't have Freyr at all, he's a really nice pick. Red Tarmiel, if you don't have him, I would say is probably my #1 pick. So I would probably go grab Tarmiel if you don't have him, grab Freyr if you don't, or if you already have Tarmiel. And then, you know, for any of the other, or like newer players, some of these characters could be kind of helpful. I don't necessarily think you should go for King unless you're just looking for like box CC or you're just trying to grab characters you don't have. But, I mean, he can be okay. He can hit really, really hard, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that there's a whole lot of like good uses for him. So that's pretty much where I'm standing with the whole thing, I guess. You will end up getting enough tickets from the login, as long as you're logging in every day, to get the entire rotation here. You'll get a lot of rewards and stuff from up here, or I say a lot, but some decent rewards from there. And just a couple of free characters. Obviously, you can pull some of these characters on the banner if you end up pulling a copy of, you know, say Red Tarmiel on your regular summons, and you want to go for Freyr after, or at the guaranteed at that point. Feel free, you know, mix and match, see what you get from the banner itself, then choose a character that you think will be very useful for you at the end. So that is pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any opinions, or you know, you want to counterpoint on any of the characters that I thought were good, feel free to leave a comment down below. But that's pretty much it. I will see you guys tomorrow. The patch notes should be out after this video, or it should be the next video after this one. So I will see you guys for the patch notes. Festival starting soon. Get hyped. Goodbye.